Well, a Spider-Man 2 multiplayer trailer has leaked, and it's bittersweet. And another Spider-Man 2 multiplayer trailer leaked just this morning with new dialogue, and I've got some theories about what is really going on, as well as when this would have been timed, because we do know from the roadmaps and DLC plans for Spider-Man 2, some of the dialogue in the second trailer, I think, is a clue as to when this might have landed. And it looks like it could have been a good time, swinging through New York City with 4 other friends. And apparently, though, this is the Spider-Man live service game that was canceled. It's a trailer for a game, or a would-be game, that was titled Spider-Man The Great Web. And it just goes to show how large this Insomniac leak was a couple of months ago, because apparently it's just now coming to surface from those leaks. Now, I don't know if I buy that personally, because the internet is incredibly fast at finding things and combing over things, and I find it really hard to believe it took 2 months for people to find these trailers. These might be leaks in quotations, right? And it invites a lot of questions. If this was a genuine leak, if it did come from the Insomniac leaks, like, when was this canceled and why? Why did they cancel it? How much of the game had been built? And given how it looks like Spider-Man 2 DLC, could it still be used or incorporated in some way, given that it just looks kind of like multiplayer inside of Spider-Man 2? So I put all of the good information right here at the beginning. I kind of open with a monologue, and then I talk with the live audience. So if you like this kind of content, be sure to hit subscribe, be sure to hit the bell button. Consider becoming a member. We do extra content for members, and we have a Discord, and that does support the channel directly. But the greatest way to support the channel is to hit subscribe, hit the bell button, and be here for the live shows. Well, a Spider-Man multiplayer game or trailer has shown up as a bittersweet gift from the Insomniac leaks from just 2 months ago, seeing what could have been from a live service Spider-Man game that was apparently canceled. Now it has some fans unsure how to respond. Some are welcoming another live service game being kept from launching and potentially failing, while others think that the game had potential. And then there's fans like myself who think that it still could be used within the Spider-Man 2 game or DLC plans as maybe a feature ad or some type of a mode. So first, I want to look at the trailer. Well, I'm just going to describe it to you. I'm not going to put stolen footage into my content. That's too risky. Insomniac could decide to take the video down, and I'm not going to run that risk. Now, there is a second trailer as well that's going to add to some of my theories, because there's different dialogue in the second trailer that hit, and I think that kind of shoots down some of the other theories about how this was just like an internal pitch. This wasn't a game that was close to being made or finished or anything like that. But I also want to remind everybody about some of the roadmaps that leaked that could be attached to this in some way. I think the second trailer especially helps some of the things that I'm going to talk about from those roadmaps specifically. Now, second, I want to look at the reactions to all of this, because the reactions are a little mixed. Some, like I said, they're glad to see another live service game canceled. We've been talking about that in a lot of the content recently. There's a lot of people who are sort of anti-live service. Now, others feel like it's a huge loss of potential, like something that could have been really fun has just been sort of thrown into the bin. Well, lastly, I'm going to tell you what I think, because I certainly had a very different response to when I first saw the trailer, and it seems like a pattern from PlayStation first-party studios right now, so hopefully that pattern can be course corrected. So what happened? So for those of you who remember, about 2 months ago, there was a massive Insomniac leak. It was actually a ransomware group that hacked into Insomniac, and they tried to sell the stolen data, and then they just eventually released it to the public. Now, due to the size of the leak, things are allegedly still coming out from it, and one of those things is these 2 trailers. One hit yesterday, one hit just this morning, and I was able to go watch it and incorporate some of that dialogue into my coverage because I think it's important. Now, the trailers are for an alleged game called Spider-Man The Great Web, and both trailers are around a minute. The second trailer is like a minute and 41 seconds, and they basically just show a mixture of concept art and gameplay, and then what looks like sort of stylized in-engine screenshots with like multiple players doing things. And it features 5 players doing multiplayer on the sort of familiar New York City map. But it also features multiverse mechanics and what looks like areas that have been artistically built to have their own distinct styles. One of the areas is almost like a comic book, maybe cartoonish feel. Looks like maybe like a Saturday morning cartoon. And then there's a black and white sort of noir style, and we know that that's sort of hearkening to the different styles that we even saw in the Spider-Verse movies. It also features a bunch of different Spider-Men from across the Spider-Verse. Now, some claim it looks like an internal trailer that was used just to pitch the idea, but given that a second trailer came out, I don't know if you would put that much production into pitching an idea. Usually things look a lot more rough when they're in those early stages, and both of these trailers look like they had a working product of some kind to really say, hey, we should build this, we should do this. And I think it looks more further along than a rough pitch, given that there's built Spider-Verse areas and a mechanic of like diving into these things, and the art style of the world changes. And there's also the various Spider-Man models. So somebody built those. Like, the different skins are in the game, but these are actually different Spider-Men, okay? It's important to note that this was apparently going to be a standalone live service game that has been canceled, and based on the villains present in the trailer, it was going to be sort of centering around, or at least starting with, the Sinister Six. Now, Insider Gaming seems to think that it was close to a launchable product from the trailer. They said, quote, "It's narrated by Yuri Lowenthal, who voices Peter Parker, and it looks ready for market. It genuinely appears to be a trailer for a product that could have been released days after it was revealed." Now, I'm not convinced that what we saw in the trailer was ready for market, but it did remind me of the two roadmaps that we saw from the Insomniac leaks, and both of them showed something called Spider-Man 2 Online, which was supposed to launch in the second half of this year, in 2024, after Spider-Man 2 released. And the same pattern on these roadmaps was there for Wolverine and for X-Men. A year after their release, you have something called Wolverine Online and something called X-Men Online releasing. And so I think there's the possibility that the deep web was canceled, but maybe elements of it or ideas were used for something completely separate. Maybe some form of co-op gets added later. Spider-Man 2 features two main characters. Maybe more show up and you can choose between them and play the game together. The same could happen with Wolverine. I mean, co-op in X-Men would be very easy to picture. Now, one other roadmap worth mentioning before we look at the reactions to this: there is allegedly 3 planned DLCs for Spider-Man 2. Beetle Infestation, Extreme Carnage, and Spider-Verse Anomaly. Now, that last one's going to really come in heavily to my theory here. The first two could be your garden variety enemy map update, where they just sort of put new things in the game. Beetle Infestation and then Carnage. But the last one could be the introduction of the Spider-Verse mechanic that we saw in the trailers, and the potential introduction of the people from across the Spider-Verse, the other Spider-Men, which could be how they introduce co-op or multiplayer of some kind into Spider-Man 2. Now, according to this roadmap, this was all supposed to be coming out this year, with the crescendo being holiday of 2024 as the last DLC, the Spider-Verse Anomaly. So we still have not had any official announcements or word from Insomniac about this. They've only done the New Game Plus. They have not done any announcements or confirmation of DLC. There's plenty of Easter eggs and clues that there's more content in DLC coming, but nothing official. Now, obviously, those roadmaps could have just been pitches. They could have been sketches for where they wanted to go. But it's interesting that it lines up with the other two roadmaps. It's also worth mentioning that the year leading up to Spider-Man 2 Online, there was a bar running across the roadmap that says multiplayer architecture. And that leads to multiplayer 1.0, which would launch with Spider-Man 2 Online. And then multiplayer 2.0 would launch with Wolverine Online, and multiplayer 3.0 would launch with X-Men Online. Given the timing and that they were apparently building a live service Spider-Man, there is the possibility that the multiplayer architecture was being built, borrowed, or used in some way. And that's what's represented by, like, from 2021 to 2024, there's this bar that just says multiplayer architecture. Well, I mean, that goes back a long time if they started working on some type of multiplayer architecture in 2021. As it stands right now, we have no official word from Insomniac about the live service game, or online modes or roadmaps or anything that happened in Spider-Man 2 or is going to happen in Spider-Man 2. And then this morning, another trailer leaked, and I believe the dialogue from this trailer really points to some timing that they probably had planned for this. It says, "You know, the great web, the interdimensional nexus of life and destiny that connects all of us Spider Pals together. A few of us here tried to protect it, but we failed." Now, this sounds like content or a game or something that was meant to drop after the Spider-Verse DLC in Spider-Man 2. Now, I always theorized that they would leverage the Spider-Verse for the third game. They would start to use the Ratchet and Clank technology, hopping through rifts. You do that very, very minimally in Spider-Man 2. They kind of introduced the idea once. And I think that's still a very strong possibility. It would make the third game bigger. It would sort of be the crescendo of the story. And we do know from one of the roadmaps that Spider-Man 3, they were considering breaking it into 2 parts, selling each part for $50, launching on PC day and date with multiplayer baked in day one, which again, I think adds credence to some of this theory that they would have been building something for multiplayer, introducing it into Spider-Man 2, or introducing just a live service game sort of as an interim. So if they already had plans for this live service multiplayer game to serve as that interlude and the furtherance of the main story, it would have led right up to Spider-Man 3. Now, they could still do that inside of Spider-Man 2, just not as a standalone thing. Maybe after the final DLC in Spider-Man 2, they turn on multiplayer, they allow you to play with another person, or maybe 1 or 2 or other people. There's going to be some reactions to the technological, difficulties with this, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But they could essentially turn Spider-Man 2 into an ongoing game, and I'll share my thoughts about that, because I do think that is a possibility with where they take things instead of doing a standalone live service game. So what are some of the reactions to this? Well, first, I will say that Game Logic had some really good input on this, and essentially the TLDR is that keeping 5 people together with the speed of traversal in Spider-Man 2 would be incredibly challenging. The architecture and the tech required would likely have led to arbitrary restrictions like invisible walls, like, hey, you can't go over there. Or they would have had to do degradations to game quality. And I actually think this adds to my theory a little bit. Perhaps they realized that 5 players was just too much. Maybe 2 players is more feasible. In their attempt to build the tech or find a solution, maybe they settled on co-op. Why else would you have a roadmap that includes multiplayer architecture being built and the implementation of that technology across 3 different games if you were planning on doing a live service game? Does that make sense? It's like, maybe they decided no live service game, but the architecture being built was good enough to then implement into Spider-Man 2, Wolverine, and X-Men. That makes more sense to me than just scrapping the live service game and moving on completely. Now, on that subject, many have asked, well, who canceled this? Was it Bungie? Was it PlayStation? Was it Insomniac? At this point in time, we don't know, but it does seem to originate from Insomniac. Also, the timing doesn't seem to line up with when Bungie started looking at projects after their onboarding process. So I don't necessarily think there was time for Bungie to be onboarded and look at whatever this project was. The most likely theories are that they encountered challenges when trying to build this, or maybe they just determined that the demand would not be strong enough. We have to remember how demanding it is to release Marvel property. They, Marvel and Disney want their cut. They want a certain level of sales, and I think this game might have been looked at and thought, you're not going to hit the numbers we need to hit for a Marvel title, and then that is maybe why they plan to incorporate it into Spider-Man 2 instead, because that game's already out and they wouldn't have to hit sales thresholds because it wouldn't be like a new game. Now, when it comes to the trailer itself, some have essentially said it looks like a rough draft. This just looks like they were trying to pitch something. I'm not sure I see it that way, because we now have a second trailer that just doesn't feel like an internal pitch. It feels like they were sort of rough sketching promotional material, not sort of rough sketching the game itself. Now, given how rough the footage of Wolverine was that we saw from the Insomniac leaks, these trailers look largely complete. You've got a closing title screen. The closing title screen restates "Be Greater Together." You have Yuri Lowenthal recording voice lines for it, 2 separate dialogue voice lines. The one phrasing about it says, "Sometimes you can swing it as a lone wolf, but you're way better off with some friends." Like, this sounds like they had a clear idea in mind, sort of springboarding off of the single player experiences, being like, yeah, you can play it alone, but hey, it's time to play with some friends. Now, this brings me back to my theory that they could repurpose a lot of this for DLC or some type of a game mode within Spider-Man 2. And if you then say, when you do this mode, it's going to restrict some things, it's going to maybe limit some of your freedom, I think that would make more sense to people. They would say, oh, I'm specifically going into a new mode that has its own rule set, that has its own things that change. Now, on the negative side of things, some folks were saying, this looks bad. I'm glad they canceled it. Now, to elaborate, many think that the concept would have been served better as a mode or a feature inside of Spider-Man 2 rather than a standalone game. Like running around the city and beating up enemies or bosses with 4 people, it's just not the most compelling standalone offer if it was meant to be a game that really lasted and kept you coming back. Especially for folks who are accustomed to playing the Spider-Man games as a single-player game. You're by yourself, you're solo, which runs into a suggestion that I saw from a lot of people. They said, look, just add this to Spider-Man 2. They added Legends to Ghost of Tsushima. This could be something fun they add to Spider-Man 2. Now, this is obviously assuming that they built this game out enough to do that, or that they got over the technological hurdles of 5 people zipping through New York City all at the same time. And for those who were glad to see another live service thing canceled or a live service project smacked down, one person said, good, I don't want Insomniac to become a live service studio. Now, this is an obvious nod to what happened with Naughty Dog and what they said about why they canceled The Last of Us Online, which I still believe Naughty Dog got taken to school by Bungie and was basically told, you have no idea what it takes to maintain a live service game. Like, you're in the dark on this. It's very possible that other studios are coming to similar conclusions. Like, listen, we're not set up for this. We're not set up to support an ongoing game. We're not support to, maintain the content rhythm that you would need to in order for a live service game to be successful. Now, this also led to some people saying it looks like they made the same mistake that Naughty Dog did. They thought they could just pivot and just make a live service game and hey, this will be fun. It certainly looks like a pattern within PlayStation that, hey, single player studios, they can take a crack at live service, right? And it doesn't seem to be going all that well. Many at PlayStation are probably thinking, thank God for Helldivers 2 right now. Live service can work, but it can't be a side project. You can't just decide, hey, I got an idea, let's do God of War Online. Like, they stick to your core competencies. I really think PlayStation needs to reevaluate who they are tasking with building live service games. Not because they can't make something that would be fun and compelling, but because they can't support it ongoing when the time would require. So, what are my thoughts on this situation? I'm going to be dead honest with you. When I first saw this trailer, I thought, well, that looks like Spider-Man 2 DLC. It just didn't feel like a standalone game. And that's not me slamming it. It was just the general vibe. It was still in New York City. It was a lot of the same attacks and a lot of the same enemies that we've seen. So the impression was like, oh, hey, they're going to push out multiplayer into Spider-Man 2. It'll be like a DLC, which, as I said, that could still be possible in some way. And I'm going to be honest about something else. A standalone Spider-Man live service game would not be able to stand on its own. I firmly believe that. This feels like another Naughty Dog situation where they said, hey, we've got popular IP, let's do a live service game. It's sort of in the same arena and commentary that I've made about live service games before. You can't just add a battle pass and seasons to something. Those are technical solutions. You need psychological ones, right? Why would people keep coming back to a game like Spider-Man to play with their friends? One of the most compelling telling things about the gameplay is managing all of the enemies, stringing together your moves and abilities, getting really big combos, having these cinematic quick-time event, almost movie-like experiences, as well as the boss fights. That doesn't really lend itself to the recipe of like, oh, this is an ongoing game that I keep coming back to because it's so fun to play with my friends. You need a content loop and gameplay built around playing with others. Take Helldivers 2, for example. You can play by yourself, but you're quickly going to see the rough edges of a game because it was built to be played with others. And the inverse would be true of Spider-Man. If it's a game where you're playing by yourself and suddenly you're playing with other people, you would quickly feel those rough edges where 5 people are jumping, swinging, and punching all at the same time. I do think 2-player co-op could work. I've said that since the AI co-op fights in the Batman games. But I remember a mission where you and Robin were having to use the same perches and gargoyles at the same time, and it led to some comical and even a little bit frustrating moments. You're like getting in each other's way. Now, the same could be true of Spider-Man. I would say that maybe the silver lining from the leak is that they're now getting player feedback and consumer response to something that maybe they were planning on utilizing. Maybe they were going to shelve this and bring it out later. Well, now they're getting a bunch of market research. I'm pulling for the multiplayer architecture actually being built and then utilized in Spider-Man 2, Wolverine, and X-Men. I think that sounds like a recipe for good additive content, good additive experiences, because I love playing co-op games with my wife. I love playing co-op games with my kids, and I think it would be a great add to Spider-Man 2, because just the other day my son was saying, hey, can we play that game together? But that's just my take on it. What's yours? So let me give you my closing thoughts and conclusions as kind of a transition into talking with the live audience here. Just this morning, the new trailer and the new dialogue really makes me think that this was closer to fruition than just some internal pitch. I also think they could still use it. Imagine if after the final DLC for Spider-Man 2, they turn the game into an ongoing hub. You could add characters, you could add events, you could add content for us to play across the Spider-Verse. I hesitate to mention it, but if you look at what they're wanting to do with Kill the Justice League with the Elseworlds, where like they just throw an Elseworld in and there's new enemies and new things to go do, well, you could do that with a Spider-Verse. You could be like, hey, we're just going to keep adding Spider-Verse portals to Spider-Man 2, and there's a new Spider-Man to play as, and there's new enemies to go fight. Again, totally additive. You could ignore it if you want, but that could be a great runway to the next game. It'd be a great way to help fund the next game, keep the story going, and you could create a really huge build-up to Spider-Man 3, because that would be the setting for, hey, Spider-Man 3 is going to be a Spider-Verse game with lots of different characters that you could potentially play as. Second thing I want to say is, the negativity surrounding canceled projects is just really odd to me. Games and projects get canceled all of the time. We just never hear about it. To use it as some sort of indication of failure or trouble is just ignorant. Every major studio in existence right now has canceled projects, has games that they did not push out. Or maybe they just passed on really good ideas. We just recently learned about a whole slew of games and modes and ideas that 343 didn't act on with Halo, because that's just part of the business. We're just in an era where information has infinitely more value than it did before, so hacks and leaks are increasing. Seeing how the sausage is made doesn't suddenly change reality that, like, well, all these studios are failing and they're all terrible. Some of our favorite games and some of our favorite studios are probably sitting on a pile of canceled games, canceled projects, or ideas they wish they would have acted on, because hindsight's always 20/20. Wouldn't you rather a developer throw something in the bin instead of asking you to do it? I kind of feel like that's what's been going on with a lot of games, is they just shove it out, clearly not ready, or clearly a game their heart wasn't in, and they expect you to throw it in the trash bin because, well, they weren't willing to. My conclusion is this. My hope is that whatever they built ends up being used in some way. I think a standalone Spider-Man live service game was destined to stumble, but adding co-op or multiplayer and maybe even an ongoing content model to an existing game, well, that might work. And it would be completely optional. It'd be a completely optional value add to those who already own Spider-Man 2. We've all been saying that these budgets are getting too big, right? The devs need to figure out a way to make more money, or they gotta cut costs, right? Well, canceling a project that would have required ongoing support and it was likely going to struggle, that's a great way to avoid loss. And it just might show up somewhere else and in a better way. But those are just my thoughts. Now it's time to hear your thoughts. So make sure you guys go through the ritual of smashing the like button. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it very, very much. What is going on? The back end does not look right to me. If you guys are having issues with YouTube, YouTube was acting really squirrely this morning. I apologize. We have been dealing with some oddities, and if you're having issues, I am sorry about that. Make sure you guys are smashing that like button, though. This doesn't look right on the back end to me, so you might need to refresh and double check. When I scheduled this stream, I was having difficulties as well, like the thumbnail wasn't cooperating with me. And I have to double check all of my descriptions now, because sometimes you can't even edit the video. It just won't save your edits. So I'm always like, the first draft has got to be exactly right. Let me go ahead and check here. 37 months from Matt. He says, nice. Thanks for being here, dude. Almost 3 entire years. A Ghost of Tsushima Legends mode would be fun in Spider-Man. Well, and I think that's why I'm holding out hope. I'm like, we don't have to immediately be like, yep, well, what a failure. They canceled it. Again, I think it's good to cancel something if it's not going to work. It would be far worse to say, we'll just shove it out, and then it fails, and they lose a ton of money, and then in the process, they damage the property, right? If you damage that property, and then people are thinking, well, I don't know, man, that last Spider-Man game was pretty bad. Well, now people aren't as confident in your product. They're not as confident in what you're creating. So I don't actually think that it's a sign of trouble that they decided this isn't going to work. We also don't know the roadmap. There were 2 different roadmaps with the multiplayer architecture being built from like 2021 to 2024. So it's entirely possible that they said, hey, we were going to build this standalone live service game, and in the process, we've decided not to, but we are going to build multiplayer architecture. We want, because their engine is a homebrew engine, if they want their proprietary engine to allow people to play games together, which is seemingly what they had planned for Spider-Man 2, Wolverine, Spider-Man 3, X-Men, then it stands to reason that we will see something implemented like it. Notice neither trailer shows what we'd be doing. Running missions, stopping crime. What would the loop even be? It looks like the loop would literally be going into Spider-Verse locations and fighting and then coming back. We would basically be trying to maintain the whatever he referred to it as in the second script that we heard this morning. They're calling it the Spider-Verse, but he referred to it as something else. My thought is that would have been the theme of the game. I think this was the plan. I think the third and final DLC was going to hit in Spider-Man 2. It's called the Spider-Verse Anomaly. They were going to break something or fail to do something, and that was going to be your handoff to the deep web, where they would then have to say, all right, all of the different Spider-Man from across the Spider-Verse have got to come together to keep this thing intact, to keep this from breaking further or from getting worse. And then that potentially would have been their lead up to the third game. You know what I mean? They're already losing tons of money by starting the development of the product and canceling it mid-cycle. We don't have that information. What you're saying is simply made up. Like, we don't know when it was canceled. They quite literally could have gone into the Spider-Man 2 engine, recorded all this footage, put together a bunch of concept art and said, this is the game we think we should build. We have no idea if they were mid-development. There's no information to indicate they were mid-development. Now, there are people that are split on this. There are people that think the trailer looks like, oh yeah, that was ready to go. And then there are other people that look at the trailer and like, the trailer doesn't show anything. It all just looks like stuff that takes place inside of Spider-Man 2. And they were just like pitching this as a concept. So again, they could have pivoted from this idea and thought, that's not going to work. An ongoing Spider-Man game, live service game, just, it doesn't have legs. And maybe that's when they decided instead to see, well, I got an idea. Let's just build multiplayer architecture so we can add multiplayer to our games, which is why those roadmaps say Spider-Man 2 online, Wolverine online, and X-Men online. Rich Raw with a $5 super chat tip. Just add factions and web to existing games or standalone. Add a few skins and guns to buy. Have X-Dev and new maintenance studio maintain it. Bam. You got to be careful with that, though, because, what Erodimus is saying is also missing out on the fact that they would stand to lose more money by launching it. You got to spend all that money marketing it, because that's expensive as heck. The marketing budgets for these games is huge. Not only do you got to market it, now you've got to push it out and you've got to support it. That's way more potential loss than saying this idea was good on paper, we're not greenlighting this, or we're canceling this. Like, we're in early production or pre-production, or I don't know, maybe they were mid-production. We don't know. But even if they were mid-production, it's far more expensive to press on, market it, ship it, support it, and then if it doesn't work, that's a massive amount of money lost. That's way more money lost than just like, well, we were getting started and we don't think this is a good idea. I've got to get one of those shirts. That's right. You got to get yourself a Lono shirt. I thought, we're covering PlayStation today. I'll bust out some of the Reforge Gaming merch. You can go to reforgegaming.net to get merch. And Feed is in the chat. Good to see you, Feed. Guys, our boy Feed doesn't have a badge. We got to take care of that. We're currently setting our sights on a 2,500 member goal. We're currently at about 2,300 members. If we hit 2,500, we'll do a big community game night this Friday night to celebrate. We have stretch goals as well. If you hit those stretch goals, then, we'll do other things on those Friday nights as well. I wonder why Sony didn't attempt to take down the leaks quickly. Okay, let me ask you guys something. Do you believe that these trailers are from the Insomniac leak for 2 months ago? Because I don't know if I believe that. The internet is really fast. The internet's really fast. And we're supposed to believe that it took the internet, the hive mind effort of the internet, it took them 2 months to find these trailers, and they just happened to find them within a day of each other? Come on. Han shot first, and so did you. Lord Horde cracks a seal and takes the first gifted member of the day, and he gives it to JG from Space. And DK Bager does a gifted member. Thank you so much, DK Bager. Appreciate your guys' constant support of this channel. 5 spot from Street Shadow. A few folks are asking for this game concept. Would be first, but they'd be the first in line to bash it if it turns into Redfall or Avengers. Did we get Feed? Yes. DK Bager got him. Nice job, DK Bager. DK Bager took care of her boy Feed. Why would those been withheld for months after the leaks? That's what I'm saying. Like, so people combed over the leaks 2 months ago and they just now are finding these trailers? I don't believe that for a minute. It doesn't take that long to find stuff like this. The internet has these types of leaks all of the time, and they find stuff within like 72 hours, not 2 months. There was a second leak. There was a second trailer that leaked this morning, and that trailer seemed to indicate that they failed to protect or stop the Spider-Verse from like breaking or something. I'll read you the exact line, because I think this means they were planning on releasing this after the final DLC of Spider-Man 2, because the final DLC of Spider-Man 2, again, this is according to leaks, as long as nothing changes. the final Spider-Man of the final DLC of Spider-Man 2 was the Spider-Verse Anomaly. So the trailer that leaked this morning had this dialogue line in it, voice acted by Yuri Lowenthal. It says, "You know, the great web, the interdimensional nexus of life and destiny that connects all us Spider Pals together. A few of us here tried to protect it, but we failed." So that to me sounds like they were going to springboard off of the Spider-Verse Anomaly DLC to basically say, you now have to protect this and keep this from getting worse. And that was going to be the premise of the deep web. Why is it an ongoing game? Well, I don't know. Every couple of months, new Spider-Verses would open, new enemies would show up, and you'd have to go fight them with your friends. Again, I don't think that's a compelling live service offer. I think that's actually one of the reasons that, I think Suicide Squad's going to struggle, right? For similar reasons. I don't think just more enemies to fight is a compelling enough offer. I think you need more than that, and we'll see how that game fares, because it's already not looking so hot. I think it won't get the support, though, because it seems like engagement isn't there from what I saw. Maybe Sony's rethinking canceling games. I don't think they're going to see the response to these trailers as like a reason to say, oh, we need to bring that game back. My personal theory is the live service game's completely dead. They're not doing it. I don't think they're doing it. What I think they're doing and what I think they've done is I think they have built multiplayer architecture for their engine so that their future games, starting with Spider-Man 2, can feature some type of co-op, right? That's what I think's going on. I don't think you have a roadmap where you're building out architecture and implementing multiplayer 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. You don't set that kind of a long-term plan for Spider-Man 2, Wolverine, and X-Men and just scrap the whole thing. I think the live service game was scrapped. I don't think they scrapped their intentions to give us ways of having multiplayer inside of their games. I don't think that's what's happened. If you're not changing it, it doesn't matter how many enemies you put in front of somebody. Right, it's just more of the same, right? Like, how many times can you really go and beat up a bunch of enemies with your buddies and you're all a different Spider-Man? Like, I don't think that's a compelling live service offer. I don't. Like I said, when I first saw the trailer, I did not think, oh, this is another game. This is a standalone game. I thought, oh, that's DLC for Spider-Man 2. That's what I thought it was. It even says be greater together at the end. Like, it has its own ending frame. And I was like, oh yeah, that's DLC for Spider-Man 2. It didn't look like a standalone game. It didn't look good enough to be a standalone game. Yo, good morning, Hex. Finally got hired at a new job. I start Friday. Been without a job for over a month. That's good to hear, Hex, man. That's not fun. I agree, says Rich Rod. I think they add slight live service stores similar to Helldivers, just like for an extra buck. Now, I wasn't looking at chat. Do you guys agree with me that this is not part of the original leak? I don't buy that for a second. I really don't. This all feels, I don't know. There's something fishy about this. This doesn't feel like it took 2 months for the internet to find these trailers. I feel like something else is going on. Are they throwing this out because they want to get people's general feel for, multiplayer Spider-Man because they have plans to announce something for this year? Maybe. Like, are they going to show up at the summer showcase and say, here's all your DLC for Spider-Man 2? Like, the original roadmap for Spider-Man 2 DLC looked like it was all coming out this year. That would be really weird. I don't know. Maybe that's the plan, is that they think launching DLC for a game like this in close succession is the right way to do it. How big was the leak? I don't know, but 2 months, Zuby? Like, let's say it was... how big was the leak? Right? Insomniac leak. Let's see. So this is the problem. All the latest news is going to be about the trailer that just dropped. like another trailer just this morning. It was 1.6 terabytes according to this report here. 1.6 terabytes. Come on, man. Nearly 2 terabytes. Leaks are still coming. So, okay, let's just round it up to 2 terabytes. The internet took this long to find these trailers? Really? This feels like something that would take a week to find. And they found them both? Like within a day of each other? I don't know, man. It just something about it doesn't pass the smell test. It does not pass the smell test. 2 entire months? Come on, man. The internet and combing over data like this? I don't know. Maybe not enough people have it, or I don't know. Maybe people weren't interested because of how big it was, so there was only like a small core group of people kind of combing through it all. Machiavelli 24 with 8 months. Sony cancels their best games. That makes no sense. So you think an idea that we never played, The Last of Us Online, and a Spider-Man live service game, you think those are the best games? Games that we've never played? Not the award-winning games that have been, nominated for Game of the Year. Those aren't their best games. Alex Mercer with 4 months. Honestly, man, Spider-Man 2 was great. I wanted more out of the game, like the City That Never Sleeps DLC that I actually did enjoy a lot in the first game. And a 10 bomb comes in from Charles Freeman. He says, come on, boys, let's hit this 2,500 member goal. Let's get started. He gets us halfway to the member goal. Every 25, I give 5, guys. Don't forget that. And Eugene says, I feel like finding movie files would have been one of the first things they searched for. Yes! That's what I'm saying, Eugene. This isn't some little text file that got looked over. These are videos. So it took 2 months for people to search 2 terabytes and find video files. Like, maybe they were encrypted, maybe they were locked, maybe they were mislabeled as non-video files and somebody figured out that they were video files. I don't know. Have we heard from any of the people as to why these were suddenly discovered? When the leaks first happened, what were the first things we saw? We saw Wolverine gameplay. It was like the first thing people found. And a minute-long video, it's like I think the first one's like a minute 14 and the second one's like a minute 40. They just looked those over. It took 2 months to find them. Again, that's why I'm like, this doesn't pass the smell test. This feels fishy to me. Were these genuine leaks at this point? A lot of assets or videos? So you're thinking that because there were so many videos, Pyramid, that's why it took this long. Like the leaks were just hanging out in movie format. It wasn't easy to navigate, says Creature. So you think the 2 terabytes weren't easy to navigate, weren't organized all that well, and that's why they were like, yeah, we couldn't find this up until today. A 5 spot from Minstry. With the success of Helldivers on PC, might Spider-Man 2 live service release when Spider-Man 2 hits PC? Now, I suffered through another Doc Dark video this morning about this, and he said that. He said, oh, they're going to do this when it comes to PC. And it got me thinking that maybe that's the plan, that they release all this DLC and then they release a complete edition of Spider-Man 2, on PC with all the DLC. And when they do that, they launch co-op and say you can now play Spider-Man 2 with somebody else. So if you're on PC, you can hook up and play with somebody from PlayStation or, vice versa. PWH-Town with 8 months of membership says, could this be an internal leak to gauge consumer reaction or engagement, like a test to see if this is wanted before going all out? Yeah, I don't know. Creature says, that's my guess. I saw something that were fully done as to them they were not. It was raw output that had to be found and exported and rendered. So this wasn't like hanging out as a movie file, like you say, like an MP4. Insomniac did have layoffs. These leaked ads could be the result of those layoffs. Yeah, I mean, maybe there was a team primarily working on the live service and they decided we're not going to do live service. Your services are no longer required. Patrick with a gifted member, thank you so much. And it goes to Erotimus. I mean, I think that's a solid theory that from what we know, the live service Spider-Man game was canceled. And if there was a team of people and that was their job, that was their job to build the live service game out, and Insomniac says, we're not doing that anymore, well, then you would let that team go. Is Ghost launching on PC with its multiplayer? Oh, I would assume that Legends is automatically baked in. Have they Tsushima Steam? That's a good question. It's the director's cut, so I would assume that it has Legends baked in. Let's see. Let's scroll down here. New game plus horse, travel attire, broken armor dies, exclusive offer, boost performance. I'm just going to control F. Legends is not listed on the Steam page here. That doesn't mean it's not in here, but it's not listed. Legends is included. Okay. Is that confirmed somewhere in writing or in the trailer, or... Because the actual Steam page makes no mention of Legends. I did a Control F. I don't think the trailer does either. I know you get the DLC. You get Icky Island DLC. Because you're getting the director's cut. But unlocked frame rates, triple monitor support, boost performance, Japanese lip sync, DualSense, keyboard, haptic, adaptive triggers. I don't know. Oh, is Legends in the trailer? Okay. I didn't think it was in the trailer. I thought the trailer was all about the features that you would be getting. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a terrible theory, that if they're going to do some kind of a multiplayer or some kind of a co-op in Spider-Man 2, they could decide to wait until it hits PC. Oh, Skill Up said the whole kit and caboodle is included. Okay. Yeah, you're trying to spell Skill Up. Skull Up. He's got to rebrand now. So, yeah, I mean, that's a decent theory. I also think it's a decent theory that based on the dialogue from the new trailer this morning, they were planning on releasing Spider-Man The Deep Web after Spider-Man 2 DLC was finished. That seemed to be the plan. Spider-Man 2 was never planned as co-op. I actually don't believe that now. I think they entertained the idea. I do. I think they entertained the idea of playing with another person. Because I refuse to believe that they built a game with both Peter Parker and Miles Morales, and they just happen to have footage. Yeah, Legends co-op multiplayer mode is in the trailer. That is correct. That's I remember seeing that now. Yeah. Legends is included in Tsushima on PC. I refuse to believe that they were building a game with two Spider-Men, and we now have footage of them inside of what looks like Spider-Man 2. They got 5 Spider-Men running around playing together. I absolutely don't buy, or I do not believe that they were like, nah, there's no reason to even consider co-op for Spider-Man 2. A bull. I guarantee you they considered it. They might have even tried it. It was pitched as a single player from the drawing board. You don't know that. No one knows that. You're making a claim on information that you don't have. No one knows the original pitch and the original drawing board of Spider-Man 2. To pretend that they didn't even consider it, discuss it, put it on the table, I think that's ludicrous. I guarantee you they thought about it, and they probably concluded that no, the single-player aspect of the cinematics and the QTEs and the combos, that's all going to be far better as a single-player game. You know, the first Spider-Man 2 teaser trailer suggested the game would be co-op. Exactly. Erotimus and I are in agreement on this. That very first trailer They showed Peter, then they showed Miles, then they showed them fighting together. And I'm like, come on. I'm staying up to date on all the leaks. They have slides out on all of this. If the initial scope of the game was to be single player, that doesn't justify what you said, that when they pitched it and it was on the drawing board, they were like, we don't even want to hear about co-op. Like I'm telling you, I guarantee you they considered it. I'm not telling you that they started building it as co-op. I'm saying it was a consideration. It was a consideration that we could let two people play this game. You've got Peter and Miles in the game at the same time. You have footage of them fighting together in the very first trailer. It was a 100% a consideration. Now, yes, I believe that they concluded we're making a single-player game, and then that's what you're seeing. You're seeing in the leaks evidence of like, yeah, from the earliest of stages, this was a single-player game. I'm not suggesting they ever started building it as a co-op. I'm saying it was 100% in the room. It was a part of the discussion. Why do you think why do you think they have a live service game scoped out and multiplayer architecture scoped out and all these things scoped out? Why? Because it was a part of the conversation. And they thought, no, we want the base game to be single player. We could maybe do co-op later, or we could do a multiplayer game later. A 2-spot from Rich Rod says, read my previous messages. I can't see you. Hang on. Rich Rod says, I do cybersecurity in the military. I look at log files, random strings of text. I'm sure these hackers knew what to look for from day one. They wanted to find stuff pertaining to video. I doubt the hackers held off for 2 months. Like I said, I do this on the military side. They knew what to look for. Raw data or not, you know what to look for. It's internal or this was on purpose. Now, the pushback that you're going to get, Rich Rod, is that these were not raw video files. They had to be put into a program and rendered. I don't know if that's true, but I think that's what's been suggested today. Like, let's say you're using a video editing program and you save the project. Well, that project or that file doesn't show you anything if you don't have that software. You just see the file and you're like, I don't know what that is. So that could be the reality. Now, in my experience, my very limited experience with video editing, even when you're using editing software, there's raw video somewhere that the software's interacting with. Like if I give you the save file from like my Sony Movie Studio Suite or something, and I give you that save file can't do anything without also me giving you the raw video files as well that save file's interacting with. So it's like there wasn't any raw video hanging out that you guys found by just searching for video files. Yeah, maybe you just sort everything according to size. They would be the larger files. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't pass a smell test. Does Photoshop still have proprietary project format? I'm not sure. Joker Quinn with a gifted member. Thank you so much, taking us to 14 members on the day. Thank you very much. If you guys are just tuning in, we're talking about there are 2 Spider-Man multiplayer trailers that leaked. Spider-Man multiplayer gameplay trailers that leaked. There's 2. There's another one that came out just this morning. And the dialogue in the second one, I think, points to this was a planned game to come out at the conclusion of all of the DLC in Spider-Man 2. Because according to the leaks, there was a roadmap where the final DLC for Spider-Man 2 was like the Spider-Verse anomaly or something like that. Could the trailers be fake? Pieced together from files? No, I don't think they could be fake. How do you fake Yuri's voice? I mean, I guess you could fake Yuri's voice with AI. Maybe. But my gosh, the level of work that would go into that. Also, the trailers contain screenshots that we've already seen from the leaks. The one leak where it's Mysterio and it says something about fight villains. We already knew there was a live service game with this name and with these images. And so those images are in the trailer, which I guess you could say, oh, they could have taken those images and made a trailer with them. You can see multiple Spider-Men fighting different characters. Making his voice would be the easiest part. If it was fake and it wasn't Yuri's voice, there'd be tweets. I'm just going to say it. I don't think that theory gets any traction. Because if that was not his voice, Yuri would be tweeting and being like, that's not me. No, that's a fake. He would not want his voice out there in a fake trailer, just like running the circle of the internet. He'd be like, no, that's not me. I didn't record those lines. I don't think that theory gets any traction whatsoever. I don't think these are fake. They genuinely look like things that were built in the game. They use the engine, they use the assets, and they were like, we're going to build a multiplayer Spider-Man game. Erotimus says, if I remember right, were people disappointed after the first gameplay reveal of Spider-Man 2 didn't have co-op in it? No. I mean, there were people that thought the game was going to have co-op, and early on, there were rumors that it might. There were rumors that, like, yeah, we might have co-op in the game. You're always going to find people that complain about something, but there was not any sort of a consensus or negativity. There was no downvoting. The trailers performed incredibly well. People were very excited. I think my biggest question mark was, what's the release date? And then they did that like a month later. You know what I mean? Those trailers are just so bad compared to what we've seen from them, like Amateur Hour. Right, but again, a lot of the times a trailer like that, Eugene, they build it in-house, and then they'll send it to a marketing company, or not just send it to a marketing company, they build it in-house and just say, okay, this is a rough first draft. Because again, we know the project was canceled. According to the leaks, the deep web was canceled. Are you really going to have excellent, amazing trailers for a canceled project? No, you're probably going to have rough drafts of like, hey, this is what we're working on. This is kind of how we want to promote it. This is the vision for the game. And then it got scrapped. Already told you why this happened, by the way, that shirt. Loney, embrace it, bro. Being Joker is just as fun as being Batman. Yeah, this is from a long time ago when I went to say Lono. And I went to say, no, Lono, Sony's not going to do that, or something like that. And I accidentally referred to myself as Loney. And ever since then, it's been a bit of a joke. On the channel, yeah. The trailers look janky because they're for internal use only. They're obviously temp trailers. Yeah, you don't have trailers with concept art in them. You don't ship a trailer with concept art. Well, unless you're Diablo 4. You don't ship... You don't ship trailers with concept art. So they were rough drafts. I don't think it's an indication that this is fake or that, a user or a fan put them together. You know, oh, they found the Yuri lines and think about what they would have had to do to fake these trailers. They would have had to have somehow figured out how to put extra Spider-Men in the game. Because you've got Ghost, you've got Spider-Gwen, Spider-Ghost or whatever her name is. You've got her swinging around and doing stuff. So you had to build the models, put them in a game that looked like Spider-Man, I guess with the Unreal Engine maybe. I was going to say, Lono, you don't do that unless you're Microsoft. That's right. Diablo 4 Shade. Yeah, those seasonal trailers were so stinking bad. I'm not saying the footage is fake or the lines are fake. You think somebody found raw footage and raw lines and potentially put together a trailer? Of all the theories that are out there, there is nothing there. That feels very flimsy. That feels incredibly flimsy. If we're trying to explain away the timing, like, that's why it took so long for this to happen, is that somebody found all the raw data and pieced it together. No, I don't think so. There's end cards to the trailers that look like the one assets that we saw which I guess with AI they could have, emulated or replicated. Dude, I don't know. I truly don't know. What if this was a live service or subscription game? Sony mentioned before that they were trying to stay away from the live service and subscription service type of game. They've never said they're going to stay away from live service games. That's completely made up. They have plans to invest in live service games. Helldivers 2 being the third after GT7 and MLB. There's nothing there's nowhere anywhere that they've said they're going to stay away from live service games. Now, subscription service type of games, I don't know if there's been any statements from any executives at Sony or PlayStation that they want to stay away from subscription model games. But I don't think they've ever commented with that level of specificity. They've spoken generically and generally about increasing their funding into live service games. 50% roughly of their funding into new projects has been allocated to live service, and the other 50 is traditional games like Spider-Man and their single-player games. Doc says, I think Sony should revisit this game. It would do very well, especially day and date on PC. I don't think it would, Doc. I think what would perform much better would be to... You do your 3 DLCs. They have the Beetle DLC, the Carnage DLC, and the last DLC is supposed to be a Spider-Verse Anomaly DLC. I think you do those 3. And then Spider-Verse Anomaly introduces the idea of new Spider-Verses opening every couple of months. They introduce a new Spider-Man you can play as, new enemies and areas to go and fight, and what you do is you give Spider-Man 2 this long tail of ongoing engagement. You get people to spend money, you get people to buy content, you help fund the next game, you have a smaller team dedicated to those things because they're not having to build an entirely new game, they're just building new environments and a new Spider-Man, and that's a lot easier to do within an existing game. I think that has a much higher likelihood of success than a standalone Spider-Man game where... Again, what's the content loop? Like, what am I doing with 4 other people? 5 Spider-Men just, like, doing this as a... hang on a second. I gotta get my crop right. Like, doing this with 5 Spider-Men, that was not as effective as I wanted it to be. Like, the timing was perfect. If you've got 5 people that can do this... The technology and the server architecture, and I just don't know how you would do it. Giving 5 people that level of freedom and speed around a map, I don't know. You would basically need to build an MMO to where a server is contained, like the entire New York City map is a server like an MMO, and then you're connecting to that server and you're zipping around that fast. I don't think they would be able to do it with the current build of the game. Do with Spider-Man 2 what 343 was supposed to do with Halo Infinite. Yeah, I mean, all Halo Infinite had to do was follow a basic live service model, and they couldn't freaking do it. I said from the very beginning it was the engine. It took them too long to do anything. Hey, this playlist is broken. Okay, we'll get to that in 3 months. Can you give us XP at the end of a match? No, but we'll do a challenge. And even then, that's not going to be a direct answer. Can you break apart these bundles in the store? No, we kind of can't do that. Like, from moment one, I thought the engine was the biggest problem, and that they couldn't act in an agile or expeditious way, and it just killed the game. They couldn't deliver content or updates fast enough. Guys, if you're new to the stream, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It enables you to talk in the chat, and we greatly appreciate you being here. Do me a favor and take a second and press the like button. If you are having any issues with chat or with video or refreshing, I don't like to talk about that too much, but it has been happening for a couple of weeks now, and it is affecting everything that we do, and I really hope they can fix it, because I know it hurts your experience, and it hurts me too. So I am sorry that that's been happening. If you're having to refresh or back out, the best advice I can give you is lower the quality on the video. So if any of these weird hiccups happen, it makes it less likely that you lose the video feed or get buffering. It needs something. Combat's too good and people are desperate for more. I think a roguelike would be a great idea. What exactly are you guys talking about? I believe it said it on a slide or a news article saying they were trying to stay away from either live service games or subscription service games. There is no slide in existence stating that Sony or PlayStation are going to stay away from live service games. Quite the opposite. Now, if there's a slide or something or an email indicating that they want to stay away from subscription service games, that could be correct. I've not seen that. I know for a fact that what you're claiming about live service games is 100% not true. They have planned to increase their investment into live service games, and Helldivers 2 is one of their first, I would say, undeniable home runs in that effort. And I think that's exactly why we're seeing games like The Last of Us Online canceled, Twisted Metal's live service got canceled, Spider-Man's live service got canceled. I think they're canceling those projects because they know it's incredibly hard to pull it off, and Helldivers 2 is going to show them, hopefully show them the way. But between Bungie's feedback and the success of Helldivers 2, hopefully they can figure it out. Guys, again, take a second and double check that like button. We got 6 likes after I said that. We have got to figure out what YouTube's doing. If your like isn't registering, maybe try and refresh. It did that to me the other day. I was watching Doc. I hit the like button. I went back into the video and my like wasn't there. So double check that. Guys, if you're lurking and enjoying the content, also double check that you did that this morning as part of your ritual. YouTube has just not been right for a couple of weeks. It's very odd. I'm watching the opening monologue, but I will say I think a lot of those service games were born out of the sicky bubble, hence all of the cancellations instead of scaling up. Well, I think it's more than that. I think people, I genuinely think this. I think 5 and 6 years ago, no, 5 and 6 years ago, roughly 5 years ago, we had the explosion of Fortnite, right? So 2018 into 2019 is like this massive surge of not just Fortnite, but also other battle royales. And so I think a lot of people said, hey, we build really big games. We build really big maps. Let's keep using that map. Right? Like, they keep dropping on the Fortnite map. They keep dropping on the Apex, PUBG, and Warzone map and playing Battle Royale. We build maps that are bigger than that. Like, if you build Assassin's Creed, or you build Spider-Man, or you build, Horizon Forbidden West, you're like, we build a map that is way bigger than that. So why don't we figure out a way to keep coming back to this world that we built instead of basically saying, yeah, let's abandon it, after it's out, right? You basically just sell the game and that's the end of it. That's all you're going to do. And I think a lot of them looked at the dev cycles, and a lot of them are looking at their costs. They're looking at their budgets and they're saying, this is ridiculous, man. If we're going to spend this amount of time and money on a game, we got to get more out of it than just like the first year of sales, roughly. That's your biggest window of, revenue generation and profit generation. And they're saying, listen, man, we've got to do more with these games than just that. That's not going to work long term. And I think a lot of them misfired into thinking that, well, we can just do live service. Well, how do you do live service? Well, you do a battle pass and you do seasons. It's so much more complicated than that. I think that's honestly what happened with. I think that's what happened with Naughty Dog. That's potentially what happened with Insomniac. This happens all the time. You look at the surface and you see, oh, that's what Destiny and Fortnite and ongoing games are doing. They have seasons and a battle pass. And you think, well, we can do that too. And what you're missing is all of the intangibles beneath the surface that keep people coming back. I've said this a lot lately. If you're going to build a live service game, you cannot simply have technical solutions to people engaging with your game. Like when I say, well, why are people going to come back and play your game? And if your answer is, Well, we have seasons and we have battle passes. No, those are technical answers. When I ask the question, why are people going to come back and keep playing your game? You can't have just technical answers. You need psychological answers. You need to have thought through, what's this compelling draw to keep coming back and logging in? Why do I care about your game in 2 months? And if you don't have very thoughtful, analytical, psychological breakdowns of like, we feel that this is going to be the driver of the engagement funnel, this is how we get people to come back. If you don't have answers to those questions, then I don't think your live service game stands a chance. More than that, you basically have to be willing to support the game with your studio. Like if we look at Arrowhead and Helldivers 2, that's all they're focused on. Arrowhead's not like building some other game. They're not working on some single player project. No. All they're focused on is Helldivers 2. To the point that they're going to slowly hire to sort of scale up with the game's demand so that they can be able to respond to problems or updates. And they've just recently added new content. If you haven't played the Termicide missions, I'm telling you, that game is going places. They get it. And they can add raid level complex content going forward if they want to. So I think Insomniac and Naughty Dog and Guerrilla, they better stick to their core competencies. I don't think Guerrilla's working on a multiplayer Horizon game and an MMO. I hope they have somebody that they're using for help and offloading a lot of that work. I don't think Guerrilla should be making an online Horizon game. I think somebody else should. I don't think Guerrilla should be making a Horizon MMO. I think somebody else should be making it. I don't think you take your award-winning single-player studios and say, yeah, just build a live service game. I think that's stupid. I think Sony got a little foolhardy and thought, well, you guys make great games, just make a live service game. Think about it. ZeniMax did the same thing because money is what drives these decisions. You've got C-suite level guys at ZeniMax saying multiplayer is a key point. We need a game that's ongoing. And they go to Arcane and they're like, can you build a multiplayer game? And they're like, no, we don't really want to. We don't have enough staff to do it. And that's not really our expertise. And I think Sony did the same thing. Sony went to their studios and said, hey, you guys are great, and we think you should build a live service game. We think you should build an ongoing game. Now, I think Naughty Dog made the decision themselves back when they made their choice to pull factions out of The Last of Us 2. I think Naughty Dog made that choice. But I think Guerrilla's efforts, I think Insomniac's efforts, I think that was a Sony initiative. They were saying, the C-suites were saying, listen, Fortnite has changed the game. Ongoing, live service, that's where the money's at. Yeah, that's what you need to do. And I think a lot of these single-player studios were like, okay, yeah, we could probably do that. And I think Bungie walked in the room and was like, you guys don't have a freaking clue what you're doing. That you cannot do live service as a side project. You can't. Like, this is my full-time gig, right? I stream every day. I debrief with you guys. We do the writer's room. I monologue it up. I research it up. I write another show. And then I'm back here again doing it the next day. If I suddenly decided that I wanted to do lengthy, thoughtful, highly edited upload content, oh, it's still on YouTube, right? It's just another way of creating content, right? I couldn't do that as a side project. It wouldn't work. I would have to dedicate myself to that instead of this. If your core competency is single player games and that's what you've been building, you can't suddenly be like, well, let's just do a live service thing over here on the side. No, you cannot do that. And all these studios have learned that the hard way. They wandered out into a field that they thought, no, we can handle this. And they stepped in quicksand. And they're like, no, we can't handle this. I mean, Naughty Dog basically said that in order to support The Last of Us Online, they would have to convert into a live service studio. And they're like, we don't want to do that. Guerrilla's making an online game and NCSoft is making the MMO for PC and mobile. Now, we don't have any hard data on that. We know that NCSoft is allegedly helping, but we don't know to what degree NCSoft is helping with the MMO. I hope what you're saying is correct. I hope that Guerrilla is primarily focused on the next Horizon single-player game, because that's what they need to do. That's their job. Their job is to protect one of the best new pieces of property that PlayStation has launched in the last 10 years. Horizon is one of the most lucrative pieces of property they have because it's theirs. There's no royalty split with Marvel and Disney. There's, that don't put misinformation out there. I'm not putting any misinformation out there. I've not stated anything other than we don't have hard data on who is working on what. We have a leak or a claim or a rumor that NCSoft is helping with the MMO. I'm not putting out any misinformation. You're making strong claims as if you're in the know, and what you stated, we do not know. Guerrilla's been wanting to do an online game based on the Horizon universe. Sure. That may be a desire that they have, but that doesn't mean that that's something they can do on the side. The point I'm making is not that they don't want to do it. No, I never said that Guerrilla doesn't want to do it. I'm saying you can't do a live service game as a side project. You can't. It's got to be the thing that you're doing. Why do you think a lot of people think that Destiny's about to get EOL'd? Why? Because the studio's working on other projects. And when that starts to happen, something's going to win. Something's going to win. When Naughty Dog considered doing Last of Us Online, you know what won? Their single-player projects won. Guerrilla has experience doing live service games. Lono, don't speak things as facts. I'm not speaking things as facts. I'm simply saying that if you're going to do a live service game, it can't be a side project. Even if you have experience doing live service games, it cannot be a side project. It has to be the thing that you're doing. It quite literally can't be like, oh, this thing that you're doing over here is an offshoot. You have to put the weight of your studio behind it. Even if you have experience, it doesn't matter. What matters is this can't be a secondary priority. It has to be the priority. And if Guerrilla is working on, from what we've been told, they've been working on the next Horizon single-player game. They have more adventures for Aloy. They have a multiplayer game they're building and an MMO that they're building. And what I said was, I hope somebody else is building and supporting those games, because you don't want it being a side project. Also, I wouldn't necessarily look at Guerrilla's history in live service as a reputation that would aid them today. It's not even the era of live service that they existed in is nothing like the era that we live in now. The demand for content cadence and support, it's completely different. It is completely different. It would be like saying, the team behind Unreal Tournament could be able, they have live service experience. No, they don't. They don't have any idea what it's like right now. They don't have a clue. When they were supporting and doing Unreal Tournament, it was a different world. It was largely PC. You didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to be adding content or maps. Just spun up servers and you were good to go. Killzone, Shadowfall was launched pre-Destiny. Yeah, that era of time is just a completely different era. I don't think you can have experience during that era of gaming and be like, oh no, yeah, we're ready for live service. Beyond that, it needs to be the primary focus of the studio. And that's what I think Insomniac, they probably learned the exact same lesson that Naughty Dog learned. We don't know what we're doing, and if we're going to do this, we got to have the studio behind it. It can't be a side project. It can't be like this offshoot thing. Because think about what they were probably hoping to do with the deep web. Based off of the timing, and I think my theory is very close to what actually happened. They were going to use the final DLC of Spider-Man 2, which is called the Spider-Verse Anomaly. That was going to be your springboard into the deep web. Right? And if that was the plan, then the deep web would have been your interlude game in between Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3. And on paper, they probably thought, this is great. We can use this to be generating funds and money and helping us pay for the next game and keeping the lights on and keeping things going. And someone who's probably like, you can't do that. If you're building Spider-Man 3, you can't have anybody supporting some live service Spider-Man game. Are you nuts? The level of support that you would need for a Spider-Man live service game, get out of here. Now, my idea of doing it inside of Spider-Man 2 is entirely different, because what they would be doing is they would just be delivering very, very small pieces of content. Like, here's a new Spider-Verse, here's a new Spider-Man, and it kind of keeps Spider-Man 2 going. That's not the same as launching a standalone live service game that would be, I would think you'd need players for that to work. You can't just launch that. But if you launch... What I misnamed it? Love that he keeps misnaming it. Is it not the deep web, the great web? I don't know why I keep saying the deep web. What is that from? I almost wrote that into the monologue several times. I wonder if I said the deep web in the monologue. I was so focused on, say the great web, say the great web, don't say the deep web, say the great web. I don't know where that's coming from. Maybe it's because of... Is there a movie or something about that? Maybe Deep State? Maybe that's what I'm doing. Maybe I'm conflating the two terms. Maybe the dark web and the deep state and the great web are all rattling around in my brain. And I'm like, and I just spit out the deep web. The deep web. It's the web, but deeper. That's right. That's right. Excuse me. Yeah, I think it's entirely different to do additive value on an existing single-player game like Spider-Man 2. I think it's entirely different because the bulk of your audience has already bought the game. They've already funneled money into the game. You have an audience that's going to be, oh, okay, yeah, I'll check this out. Oh, I'll buy that season. I'll buy that content. I'll buy that skin or whatever, right? I think that's an easier funnel for revenue than trying to convince a bunch of people to buy or get into it. Because if they did the Great Web free to play, even then, right? Even then, it would be I think a tough sell. I don't know why you guys keep making that joke. This is its own joke. This is part of the lore of the channel. You can't even compare Rockstar, though. It's so big, they're bigger than most of Sony's studios combined. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think there's a difference anytime you have, that would be like comparing Ubisoft to Insomniac or Naughty Dog. Those studios are just massive. They're so massive that they have teams working on completely different games and supporting completely different games. You can't make those. One of the dangers, I think, sometimes of comparing studios is it's easy to think on the surface that a studio is a studio is a studio. And it's like, no, there's an enormous difference between Insomniac and Naughty Dog and Guerrilla and Ubisoft. You're like, well, how is, Ubisoft makes, live service games and single player games. Yeah, they're completely separate studios that do that. And that's the point, isn't it? That if you're going to do a live service game, you need a studio behind it. That's that studio's job. Like, one of the reasons that Helldivers 2 has promise, and I think is going to be able to go to the distance, is because they have a studio, and that's their job. That's their thing. Nobody's going to work and is like, what are we doing? No, they're all full court press, all hands on deck, all those corporate lingo, terms that they use. Everybody is focused on making sure Helldivers 2 is stable and running and getting updates and player feedback, and that the servers aren't smoking. PlayStation's a long way away from being able to foster a player base like that on a homemade game as a service. They had ambitious plans for the player base. 53 million on PlayStation, 17 million on PC. What game are you talking about, Wolfpack? Ben says, what would the progression and loop have looked like anyway? Boss fights can only be sustainable for so long. Again, I would imagine that a new Spider-Verse would open, a new Spider-Man would pop out and say, hey guys, I need your help. That's essentially what I think would happen. And you would just go and do it. The deep web is one step away from the dark web, apparently. So it is a term. So it is a term. I'm not insane. That is a term that's been used. Never trust a non-smoking server. Have you seen the interview with Jim Ryan on CNBC? It's very interesting. What are your thoughts on this interview? I've not seen that interview, no. My Dave Grohl Epiphone has shipped. It's happening. Ooh, nice. It's going to be great to hang that on the wall and not play it. Yeah, so Sven, that's what I think you would have done. You would have gone into, a new Spider-Verse. You'd have new enemies, a completely new aesthetic. Because, they showed the black and white one, right? So you'd go into the noir environment, and it would be all dark and black and white, and so would the enemies, and then there'd be a boss. And your reward for that would likely be a bunch of cosmetics for the new Spider-Man that they gave you with that new seasonal Spider-Verse. But that's the problem with that. That's not a compelling offer. That feels like a mini DLC that you can kind of play with your buddies. Like I said, that makes more sense as additive value inside of Spider-Man 2. It doesn't make sense as a standalone. It's like, so I'm going to download a completely separate game and periodically go into another Spider-Verse with my friends? Like, what's the point of that? It makes way more sense for something like that to show up as an additive mode or DLC inside of Spider-Man 2 than it does as a standalone live service game. A 5-spot from Street Shadow says, I want to flip the convo on live service. What would be a good game for this? My choice would be Team Battle Royale Warhawk. Personally, and this is my bias showing, I think the next era of successful live service games will not be PvP. And I know I'll get a ton of pushback on that, but I think the PvP market is so saturated, all you're trying to do is appeal to PvP guys, and they already have their game. You're not going to get guys to stop playing CSGO, Dota, Fortnite, Apex, Call of Duty. Nope. No. You'll notice that a lot of the PvP games that have tried to come out and a lot of the PvP live service games that have tried to come out, everybody's blaming it on the Battle Royale being oversaturated. I got news for you. All these PvP extraction shooters are going to learn a really hard lesson. They're going to learn a really hard lesson. You're appealing and targeting an audience that already has their game. You think Helldivers is the canary in the coal mine? I think it is, and I've said this for a while. I think PvE focused live service games have a better shot because that appeals to a broader base of player. The PvP guys are settled, and the non-PvP guys are settled. You're not going to suddenly turn me into a PvP player. You're not. I don't care what game you come out with. I don't care how creative you are. I'm not going to come play your PvP game for very long. I'm not. I've made up my mind. I've landed in a lane of I'm so done with PvP. I played Quake 2. I played Quake 3. I played Unreal Tournament. I played every Call of Duty until Black Ops 3, and I'm done. I'm done. So I think games like Helldivers 2, I think that Project U game has potential from what I'm hearing as being, again, more of a PvE game. I don't think strictly PvP games, even if it's an extraction shooter, all those extraction shooter games are going to do is step on each other's toes, get in each other's way, oversaturate the market, and then you know what? Maybe one of them breaks out, but the rest, no shot. And even the one that breaks out has to contend with all of these other monolithic, Leviathan-sized PvP games. PUBG, Fortnite, Call of Duty, Apex Legends. That's not even including the monster PvP games on Steam. I don't know. Fighters are where it's at for PvP. Yeah, but even the fighting community is pretty settled, is it not? How many new customers do you think fighting games get? Like a fighting franchise, on average, how many new customers do you think they're getting? The vast majority of people buying Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and Tekken, they're fighting game guys. That's what they like. That's what they buy. You're not getting guys like me to buy those games and play them. I'm like, no, I don't play those games. There's plenty of people like that, right? They've just decided that fighting games are not their jam. The gaming community is settling. I just think it's settling. Like the sediment and the rocks, it's all settling, and everybody's kind of where they like to be. And you're not going to get massive migration. You're not going to get a bunch of PvP guys to migrate from Call of Duty. You're not going to get a bunch of non-PvP guys to migrate to your PvP game. I think that's a fool's errand. I think you're trying to move mountains instead of just building on the mountain. I think PvE focused live service games have a better shot because you're appealing to a significantly larger base. Think about what Helldivers appeals to. It appeals to people who like shooters. It appeals to people who like co-op games. It appeals to people who like, the knock-around games of old where you could just like shoot aliens with your buds. It appeals to guys who like Destiny. It appeals to guys that like The Division. It appeals to people that like Call of Duty. What you're doing is you're scraping off all of these other types of games and players, and they're all like, yeah, I can kind of get down with this. It's really fun. You have a broader appeal at that point. You come out with a PvE extraction shooter, who are you appealing to? Who? You're appealing to, like, Call of Duty and Tarkov guys. That's it. The rest of the market's going to say, no, I'm good. I tried to extract once and somebody killed me and it ruined my night. I don't like extraction shooters. Like, I think that's generally the challenge with PvP games and extraction games is the enjoyment is wound up in winning. This is why skill-based matchmaking is an epidemic, and it's frustrating for guys like me who are mediocre. It's like, well, I can put up decent stats, and then skill-based matchmaking misfires and thinks I'm a god when I'm not, and then it puts me in lobbies with gods, and then I don't want to play anymore, and guess what I do? I don't play anymore. People are like, just go play something else. That's exactly what I do. I play your PvP game for an afternoon, and I'm like, I'm not trying to qualify for a tournament. I'm not trying to get good. I'm just trying to laugh with my friends. And you know what I can do that in? Helldivers. I don't have to worry about getting shot by a god or drop shot by some guy that's been playing all day, some kid who just snorted G Fuel off the desk and he's got his ninja headband on and he builds a mini mall in Fortnite. Like, I don't have to deal with any of that. I'm just having fun. Like, I don't play video games to, like, get better at shooting another player. It's like, I've been doing this since the first shooter was made. This is my skill ceiling. I'm at it. This is as good as I'm gonna get. You're never gonna move my skill needle beyond where it is. You just aren't. I don't care enough to try, and I'm getting old. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to go play something else. I'm going to play your freaking game. I'm a 1.0 KD player. I'm not playing against these people. And I guarantee you, guys like me, there's way more of us playing games right now than the young gen. The young gen is gravitating towards the PvP games, obviously. And this is what I think is going to happen. I think generationally, what that's going to do is it's going to shove people out that are in our age bracket. And we're a huge bracket of the gaming world. Do you want to know who's playing Helldivers 2? Dads. That's moms and dads. People that are busy. People that are like over the age of 28 and they're tired of getting domed in Call of Duty and Fortnite. Right? We're a huge chunk of the gaming market. And I think as you shove us out of PvP land, we're aging out. We don't like it. We die. We lose. We have a good game and skill-based matchmaking punishes us for it. So what are we going to do? I think there's going to be a resurgence and a pendulum swing of PvE live service games because we want to play, we want to come back and play more, we want to play with our buds, and a game like Helldivers is showing that there's a frickin' market for this. People want to play with their buds, have fun, and not have to worry about getting good or sweating or skill-based matchmaking. So yeah. That's a long answer to the question, and I did not thank K. Cole says, love the shirt, bro. Thank you so much for 16 months in a VIP. I appreciate that. That's a long answer to Street Shadow's question of what would be a good game for this, what would be a good game, live service game. I can't get down into the specifics of what the game would be like, but I think the next trend of live service games will be PvE co-op in their nature, in their focus. Now, you might be competing against another team, but you're still working with your buds, like a PvE co-op focus. I think that's the next trend you see in live service games. My 70-year-old former law professor was posting on Facebook about how much fun he's having in Helldivers 2. There you have it. There you have it. What do people our age do when a new season of Fortnite or Call of Duty or Apex comes out? What? They go play for a couple of days and they're like, oh, F this. Like, it has no staying power because it's only fun if you're winning. Admit it. No, get out of here with this crap of like every loss is a chance to learn and improve. Shut up. Nobody says that when they lose. Unless they're like a masochist or they're training, like they're actually training and trying to qualify or something, and they're able to keep their cool. The average person, when they lose a PvP game, they're not having fun. And video games are supposed to be fun. So, when you get into my age bracket and you go and you play the new season of Call of Duty or Fortnite or any of these games and you lose a couple of times, the odds of you continuing to play diminish every single second that you're in there. You're like, no. It comes down to community building more than what you're saying, I think. That's why Helldivers CEO went on his deal about toxicity. Older players aren't going to put up with that side of games, and PvP games are that side of games. Right, but here's the thing that I think will naturally happen, Creature. I think those people are toxic because they're impatient and they only want to play in a certain way, and I think they're the ones that'll leave the fastest. I don't think we have to worry about those people. I think they will naturally prune themselves from the community. I think the people that I've played with through matchmaking or even here through our community or the people that we've met through streaming Helldivers, I think those people are going to stay and they're going to be the community that continues to make the game awesome. I also think it's really hard to build community around PvP. How do you build community around PvP? What are you doing? You're just trying to kill the other team. Like, that's basically it. And we've been doing that for a really, really long time. It's a lot easier to build community around, you do this, I do this, you do this, let's all do it together, let's time it right, victory. It's so hard to do that in the meat grinder of a PvP game. I mean, that's why we see the shift away from PvP games. I think that's why you see companies leaning into non-PvP games. Yeah, you're way more likely to build a community around that. Like, look at Destiny's history, for crying out loud. The vast majority of the money spent, time spent, player base of Destiny has always been PvE. Always. And people are like, PvP carried this game. Yeah, on Twitch. That's not indicative of the community's behavior over the years. It's been 10 years of like a 70-30 split. Derek says, I've always been saying having a win-loss ratio hover around a 1.0 is the expected outcome when a game is working correctly. Never lose equals boring, always lose equals boring. Right, but the problem with the 1.0 win ratio, Derek, is that half of my evening isn't fun. I've got 2 hours to play, and if it's always a 1.0, you break down the math, that means 1 of every 2 hours is I'm just not having a fun time, I'm losing. You know, imagine playing a game where, you know, let's say you're playing through Ghosts of Tsushima. Let's say you're playing Spider-Man and you beat the first boss relatively easily. And then the next boss just absolutely wipes the floor with you like 3 or 4 times in a row. And then all of a sudden he gets easier. What would you say? You'd be like, what the heck is going on? That's what PvP feels like. Like your first match, you're like, that's pretty good. That's pretty fun. And then your next match, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting my clock cleaned. Oh my word, I'm dying. I'm losing. And then the game's like, oh, poor you. Here's an easy lobby. The whiplash is just so extreme. We're like, what the heck is happening? I'm a god. I'm trash. I'm a god. I'm trash. Like, no, thank you, bro. No, thank you. I think a lot of people are like me, and they're walking away from that crap because it isn't fun. There's nothing fun about it. It's too dichotomous. You're either winning or you are losing. It's a binary. It's a 0 or it's a 1. Every match is either a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And it's like, come on, that has no staying power. It's why cheating's on the rise. I think that's why cheating's on the rise. It's the only way for the player to control the factor of the game that is the most dichotomous. It's like, well, no, think about the insanity of that. Well, I'm winning every game. Well, yeah, you're cheating. But that's how unenjoyable it's become, that people are basically willing to win illegitimately just so they can be like, well, at least I'm winning. I steal popular names for likes. With 8 months of membership, I've been playing less and less multiplayer games for the past few years. As I reach my mid-20s, I've only ever been hyped for big single-player games like Dragon's Dogma 2, PvE for the W. Guys, do me a favor. Can you smash the like button? Nice turnout today for the Spider-Man 2 multiplayer getting canceled discussion. We're obviously talking bigger picture. It touches on the subject, though, of this canceled live service game. It's like, what's the theme of ongoing live service games? Why are PvP games, at least in my estimation, going to see less and less player? I'm not saying that PvP games are dying, by the way. I'm saying you're going to see less and less new PvP games because of how the market has settled, in my opinion. I think PvE will be the new theme of live service games. Also, do me a favor. We need 10 more gifted members or brand new members. You can just sign up on your own and it moves this member goal. We hit 25. I give 5. We're pushing for 2,500 members this week, and we're hovering, I believe, in the 2,300s right now. And if we hit 2,500, I'll do a big community game night with you guys this weekend, and it'll be a really good time. Make sure you guys are also subscribed to the channel. Make sure that bell button is pressed. We're actually 26 members away from 2,400. So good to see that number stabilizing, and good to see you guys continuing to lean in and support what we do here. We greatly appreciate it. I agree this is zero sum and it's not fun for me, but from the standpoint of player retention, for the people who do enjoy them, that's all I'm talking about. Oh, for sure. For sure. You're basically explaining why skill-based matchmaking is in place. They want to retain the players that actually are enjoying it. I don't think it's a proper analysis of Destiny and how your time is spent in an MMO aspect of PvP, because you become stronger in Destiny PvP by questing in the MMO. You gain items in PvP, not exotics. It's not an improper analysis, it's factual. Like, you don't have to agree with my take on Destiny being largely carried by PvE. It's a matter of fact. It's something that Bungie has said. It's something that bots that track player behavior, they back up with data. It's not an opinion. It doesn't need your agreement or disagreement. It's just a fact. That game has been carried by PvE players and content way more than PvP. It's never had a PvP majority. And how many years have they done virtually nothing with PvP? No new maps, no new modes. The iterations and things they do are always so half-baked. Every time they add new abilities, it completely destroys PvP. Like, no. I covered that game for half of a decade, and what I am saying is not a matter of opinion. It's just a matter of fact. It's not analysis. It's just stating what is. I said the PvE is major. Then what analysis are you disagreeing with then? Yo, JC with a gifted member sets up an easy dunker, 15 out of 25. We'll see if anybody slams home that 10 bomb, JC. Nice job. Helldiver's launch was very smart. Seems like they had an internal roadmap almost complete that has allowed quick launches of new content. But the PvE is so you're stronger in PvP. No, I don't think that is the intention at all. So much of your gained strength in that game makes you stronger in raids and nightfalls. When brand new content drops, everyone's grinding to get their light level up so that they can go into endgame content like dungeons and raids and nightfalls. If you don't believe me, then go run endgame PvE content without any of the cool new strong stuff. Like, do it. Go run a Grandmaster, go run a raid, go run a dungeon, and don't use the new strong awesome things. Use crappy stuff. Use bad gear. Use weaker gear. Like, do it. If you intentionally avoid all of those things, all those incentivizations, and you go into high-level PvE content, you're going to do a bad job. Not to mention these days, half the crap your gear up in PvE doesn't even work in PvP. Yeah, I've not played the game since I was wrongly banned in 2021, so I don't even know what the state of the game is like now. But for half a decade, that was the grind. That was the flow of that game. Like, at one level, he's not wrong. Like, you go and grind. The guys from PvP, they go and grind and get good stuff for PvP. But even then, like, of course that's the way it's going to be. That's where the loot is. The loot is in PvE. Now, they started making PvP-centric loot that you get in, like, trials or that you get for, like, completing. What were those things you got? What was the one gun? I don't even remember the name of the one gun, but you could only get it in PvP, and you had to, like, grind all season to get it, and it was really awesome, and then they nerfed it, and you know, there were guns like the Recluse and others that came from PvP. They started doing more PvP-centric grinds and weapons. Yeah, like the Recluse and the Luna's Howl and stuff. They started trying to do that. They started trying to create more of a dividing line, but then it doesn't work because if a gun's really strong, like the Recluse, then it suddenly started showing up everywhere in PvE, you know? Nice to join you on my sick day, Lono. Good to see you, Orange Cat. And guys, double check if you're lurking and listening and you enjoy the show. Double check that you have pressed the like button. We've been having to like double ask because it's not been working, and that's on YouTube. It's not your fault. Something's been going on with YouTube. Also, if you want to talk in my chat, you just have to be a subscriber, and subscribing is free. Becoming a member is different. Subscribing is free. The join button is membership. And if you do want to become a member to get into the extra content, just make sure you pick the $6 member tier. The $5 tier is called Gifted. That's reserved for gifted members. We do a lot of gifting here. I gift back to the community regularly. Every 25 members, I gift 5 back. And we've been doing that for over a year and a half now. So the reason that we're suddenly talking about Destiny in like a Spider-Man stream is because I actually don't think, if you haven't seen the trailers yet, there is a Spider-Man multiplayer trailer that got leaked. And if you haven't seen it yet, there's 2 of them, and they're very basic. It's a mixture of concept art, like in-engine screenshots that have been stylized, and gameplay of multiple Spider-Men swinging through the city and fighting together. There's recorded dialogue from Yuri Lowenthal about, it's good to be a lone wolf, but it's also good to work together. And the one dialogue line that hit just today said, the great web, the interdimensional nexus of life and destiny that connects us spider pals together. A few of us here tried to protect it, but we failed. And I am theorizing that from the Insomniac leaks, we saw Spider-Man 2 DLC that was going to be ending with the 3rd DLC being called the Spider-Verse Anomaly. And it was my theory that their tentative plan was to have that DLC be the handoff to the Great Web Spider-Man game. That's what it was called. Spider-Man The Great Web was going to be a standalone live service game. And I believe the final DLC of Spider-Man 2 was going to be the handoff to it. Now, because of that, I'm convinced that they could still use it, because there was also roadmaps that said multiplayer 1.0, multiplayer 2.0, and multiplayer 3.0. And what we saw on those roadmaps was Spider-Man 2 Online showing up a year later. Now, keep in mind, Spider-Man 2 Online is not the same as Spider-Man The Great Web. Spider-Man 2 Online looked like they were going to be adding some sort of online component to Spider-Man 2, and the same rhythm was in place for Wolverine as well as the X-Men game. So, my theory is that they canceled the Spider-Man live service game, because we know PlayStation live service games are a focus. I believe that live service game has been canceled. And potentially what was gleaned or gained, or what they benefited from, was that they managed to build some type of multiplayer architecture for their in-house engine. We know that Insomniac's engine is an in-house engine. And I believe that potentially is still going to be implemented in Spider-Man 2 with some type of a DLC. Now, I have said that maybe they could even say, hey, after the final DLC of Spider-Man 2, we're going to do ongoing content delivery inside of Spider-Man 2 with this Spider-Verse thing that they were going to do, which I believe would essentially look like every couple of months a new Spider-Verse opens, a new Spider-Man pops out that you can play as, and then you go into that Spider-Verse and fight enemies and get unlocks and cool items or something like that. Which could mean they introduce some type of ongoing monetization, which I know might frustrate people, but if they do that after a bunch of DLC and a bunch of great content, I think people might be more receptive to that as an idea, because it wouldn't be like an out-of-the-gate monetization structure like we've seen, largely rejected in live service games. It's like barely a focus in Helldivers 2, and in other games where it seems like it's a primary focus, it becomes, a point of criticism and contention within the gaming community. So that's kind of where I land on this. We debated a little bit about whether or not these were genuine leaks, because I don't believe that they were. Have I not turned on the timer again today? Yep, I didn't. Whoops. It's allegedly from the original Insomniac leaks like 2 months ago, and I have a really, really hard time buying that. Like a really hard time buying that. I don't quite understand why it would have taken that long to find it. Now, people have pushed back on my skepticism, and they have said, look, it would take a really, really long time to comb through all of the raw data and all of the raw files, and this might not have even been a raw video file. Even if it was just sort of like a video file that was used in some sort of editing software, I still think that you would have to have raw video files, You didn't put the coffee in the frame either? I didn't put the coffee in the frame either. Someone made their Hunter or Titan look like Silver Surfer. It's pretty cool. Game Rant had an article. Love the Lono shirt. Thank you. The Lono shirt and the Reforge Gaming hoodie that I wear and the tumbler that I drink out of, this is all merch that is available if you want to support the content directly. One of the best ways to support directly, okay, the best way to support is just to hit subscribe and be here and watching. But if you want to support directly, the best way is membership. Either pick up your own membership for $6 or gift membership. Help us hit these daily goals. It keeps the membership pool fresh and flowing. But there's also other ways. You can buy coffee if you're a coffee drinker. This is not a sponsor. The glasses I wear are from Gamer Advantage. Usually I'm wearing shirts from Into the AM, but we do have our own merch at reforgegaming.net. The coffee merch is at reforgeroast.com. If you want to buy the coffee, a lot of you guys listen to the show like a podcast. You're drinking coffee throughout the day anyway, so it's a way to support me and the fam. The wife and kiddos bag it up. You get like a thank you note from the kids. I'm not getting like a kickback from some company. This is my property. Unlike the sponsors that we work with, like Into the AM and Gamer Advantage. Those are sponsorships. If the devs want more cash, lower microtransactions cost. If skins were $1 to $2, it'd be 100 more likely. At 10 to 20, there's no way. Well, Hadigan, here's the thing about the cost of skins in games. What you're saying is true for you, but it isn't true for the market. If they set it at $1 or $2, they would make less money. They actually make more money by setting the price of skins at this tension point of enough people will buy this at 10 that we make more money than the number of people that would buy it at $5. One of the things that happens psychologically is if you went to the store of a game and all the skins were $1, that creates a mental devaluation of the skins. You're like, well, everybody's going to have these. They won't be, there's no novelty, there's no vanity. Everybody and their mother is going to have these skins because they're only $1. So it makes you look at the skins as if they're lower in value. Like, yeah, these are trash, right? And so they know that the price has to be set at a point where it communicates value and at the quantity of, well, if we sell 1,000 of these, it's better to sell 1,000 at $10 than 1,200 at $5, right? Whatever increase that you think you're going to get in, oh, more people will buy this at $5, they need to sell way more because now they're making $5 less per skin. Does that make sense? So again, as I started this, response to you, it might be true for you. You'd be like, well, I would buy more. The market at large doesn't function that way, and then the companies would make less money. They would make less money. Less people would buy them. William Lewis with the $5 Super Chat tip says, so what you're trying to describe for the Spider-Man game is similar to what they did with the Hitman series universe. Yes. Yeah, you almost convert the game into a central hub of activity, and I believe they could do that with Spider-Man 2. I do. The map is so big. Think about it like this. In the second half or the back third of Spider-Man 2, the entire map changes because Venom is trying to heal the world, okay? Imagine if every couple of months that happened to the game. Oh, man. Spider-Gwen is here, and her Mysterio is breaking through into our New York City. So we've got to go and shut down these Spider-Verse cracks and these holes, and it would be changing the map. You'd have all these Mysterio enemies, and you'd have these Mysterio events taking place in New York City. I think we may have already gotten a glimpse into how they might do it, because they can completely rework all of the activities on the map and change the map like that. I'm not saying that would be easy, but I'm saying they may have the technology available to say, okay, all of the crimes that spark up, all of the little fights that you were doing with the Venom guys, they're now different. You know, now you're not dealing with Kraven and Venom enemies. You're dealing with, like the Carnage DLC, I could see them completely changing the map, and you have all these things cropping up and happening, and they're Carnage enemies. You know, they're red or whatever. I don't know. Like, that kind of tracks for me. Like, that's a reason to come back and play. Game feels fresh, game feels new stuff to do, new enemies to fight. You know, and here's where the Great Web comes in. It's one thing to come back to Spider-Man 2 and to play through the game as Miles or Peter and to face like a new baddie. But it's another thing to keep coming back. Well, if they say, hey, come back, and you're going to have a new Spider-Man with a new skill tree and new abilities, well, that's more compelling. You're like, oh, that'd be kind of fun to play as a new Spider-Man, you know, and to have new movesets and to have new things to do. They've already shown that they can be pretty creative and create a pretty deep reservoir of abilities and things within 2 different Spider-Men. So, wouldn't be hard to do it with more. So, I tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to do 15 minutes of members only in the chat. This is a great opportunity to gift members, to give people a sampling of what it's like to be in the member pool. And this is called a gaming AMA. You can ask me anything about gaming. It doesn't have to be on subject. We try to stay on subject. So today we talked a lot about live service games and we talked a lot about Spider-Man. This is also a great opportunity for you to pick up your own membership. You just got, you know, how many hours of a live show, 2 hours of a live show, and then 15 minutes of, hey, if you want to support directly and be a part of what we do here, now's a great time to do that. Just make sure you select the $6 membership if you decide to join as a member. And if you guys gift and hit the 25, then I'll give 5. We'll pull more people in. They'll be able to sample this. So feel free right now. You can ask any question about any of the gaming topics that have been going on out there. Would that be compelling with reskinned enemies over and over? No, I wasn't necessarily saying the enemies would be reskinned, Kirk. I was saying that the activities would change. Instead of dropping down and fighting, you know, Venom guys, you would drop down and fight Carnage guys. Now, obviously, I didn't go into the details of what that would look like, but I certainly would hope that we wouldn't just be fighting red versions of the enemies we were already fighting. I'd be hoping for new enemies and potentially then requiring some new strategy of maybe there's Venom guys that are really big, and when you beat them, they break into like 3 or 4 little guys, and then they try to spam cover you. So you've got to use some of your crowd control. You know, that's just an idea off the top of my head because I've been playing Death's Door, and there's these big fat glob guys, and when you kill them, they break into little, kill them, break into little. You know, maybe Carnage enemies could do something like that. Like, I'm all about introducing new enemies, new mechanics, new whatever. I'm fully in support of that. I don't think it would be very compelling to come back to the game to be like, hey, the Beetle Infestation DLC is here. And you're like, sweet. And you're just fighting a bunch of blue enemies across the map, and they're all the same that you've already been fighting. Is the multiplayer DLC canceled or just the full game? There was never, as far as I could tell, there was never any hard confirmation about a multiplayer DLC. There was something called Spider-Man 2 Online that was coming a year after Spider-Man. It was supposed to be coming, according to the roadmap, the end of this year. Spider-Man 2 Online. Now, the live service game was called Spider-Man The Great Web, and that has been canceled. According to the internal documents, I believe there was even a podcast where somebody from Insomniac basically, in passing or passively, confirmed that the Spider-Man live service game is not happening. Do you think the canceled game was tied to Beyond the Spider-Verse? It might have been tied to the Spider-Verse movie. I think it's more likely that it was tied to the third DLC for Spider-Man 2, is allegedly called the Spider-Verse Anomaly. I think it was tied to that. I think whatever happens in that DLC was meant to be like a handoff, because the dialogue from the one trailer, that there was a second trailer today for The Great Web that leaked. And that trailer said that they failed to protect the Spider-Verse. It said, a few of us here tried to protect it, but we failed. So they tried to protect the Great Web, the interdimensional nexus of life. And so to me, that sounds like, oh, there's a DLC that's going to introduce Spider-Verse mechanics. We're not going to ultimately win that DLC. We're going to fail. And then they're going to hand things off to this live service game. Well, the live service game's been canceled. I happen to think there's still a likelihood that something like it shows up within the game of Spider-Man 2. That they have something planned. So, guys, if you haven't done so yet, we need about 30 more likes on the video. Let's hit 300 likes. And if you're currently not able to chat, all you need is a membership to chat right now. And then whenever we're done with this segment, we go to the writer's room. That's available to all $6 members and up. So make sure your membership's active if you want to be a part of the writer's room. And we need 10 more to hit the daily goal, 25. And you guys have about 10 minutes to do that. Spider-Verse Anomaly was explicitly stated to be a movie crossover in the leak. So it was going to be a movie crossover. Okay. I mean, they kept trying to act like there was no crossover with the movie, and I was like, I know that's not true. You could clearly see the Insomniac Spider-Man in the one Spider-Verse, there was at least 2 pictures where you could clearly see him. It's like, dude, get out of here with this nonsense. That's clearly him. No, it's not. Yes, it is. It 100% is. I'd like to talk to them. Who is this? I don't know what this is. Oh, maybe maybe does BS director stand for business director? Somebody DM'd me and said they would like to talk to the BS director. And I'm like, are you saying I'm a BS guy? I'm a BS director? The roadmap has X-Men live service game, which makes more sense as a live service, more characters, more enemies. That's actually not the roadmap I saw, Minch Tree. I saw a roadmap where... Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Hang on. Let me look at the roadmap again. It was my understanding that X-Men Online was launching after X-Men. Yeah, X-Men Online was coming after X-Men the same way that Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine Online were coming after. It's like Spider-Man 2 Online, Wolverine Online, and then X-Men Online. Yeah, the BS director. I know. Maybe he meant business director. I don't know. Maybe he's doing shorthand. The BS director. I know, like the BS detector. Isn't that a thing? The people say that. They say BS detector. I don't know about BS director. I don't know about all that. That's one X-Men game from the 90s. I'm kind of in agreement with you. I wonder if Kill the Justice League audience response and reaction has anything to do with companies cutting these live service games. It really makes you wonder, right, Kirk? Like when that trailer hit for Kill the Justice League, did a bunch of these other companies like pump the brakes and they were like, wait a minute. The community is not about this, dude. We may have made a tactical error here. Right? What are you hoping next comes to Helldivers? I just want more variety in the content, which they delivered just yesterday with the Termicide missions. I think they're really fun. I think they can keep doing that. It's such a... I hate to say it this way, but it's such an easy game to iterate on the content because you literally just have to say, hey, Helldivers, go do this thing. And while you're doing this thing, you're going to get attacked. So all you got to do is change that thing that we're doing. Now you got to go turn these silos on, and each silo you turn on, you then have to protect. Okay, the fundamentals of the game aren't changing, but the environment's different. These big, huge silos, this big, huge area that you're going to, it feels awesome. Now, the other thing I want them to do is make all the weapons and stratagems, feel worth using. I like that they did some ghost buffs. The recoilless rifle, I was having so much fun with that last night, which, by the way, that name makes no sense. Like, when I hear recoilless rifle, I think of a rifle. It's a rocket launcher, and you have the rockets on your back. And apologies to Rogue. I thought he accidentally picked up my backpack last night. He was going to try and wear it and load for me, and I shot him so I could get it back, which I was kind of glad I did that anyway, because I prefer to reload it on my own. I don't want to stand around and be like, I can't reload, no one's here. Have you gotten the black flashing screen? No. Yeah, that's just more elaboration on Peter Moore's comments, Eugene. I saw that this morning. It turns out Xbox has been planning to leave the console gaming market for 15 years. Yeah, they've not been planning it. They've been discussing it. That's a terrible headline. It's a terrible headline. It turns out Xbox and Microsoft have been discussing leaving the console gaming market for over 15 years. They weren't planning it. Like, that's just terribly written. If I pick up someone's backpack, you kind of got to expect being shot. I didn't want to have to rely on him for reloads. I wouldn't have liked that. There was a time where a bug hole opened and I kept shooting the big fat guys that were coming out, and I was able to do that because I could keep reloading my own thing, and he was off somewhere else. Recoilless refers to the weapon that doesn't have a closed breech. The gases come out the back. I didn't know that, and I'd hazard a guess a lot of people didn't know that. I just saw the name and thought, yeah, no, I'm good. It's fun. I was having a blast with it last night. It's a real fun weapon. I just hope they keep doing that. Just keep making weapons good at certain things. I didn't get a chance to shoot a charger in the face with it because the one charger that we found on the Kill the Charger mission, somebody killed the first one, I think, really quickly with the mech. And I said, well, save the next one for me. I want to try this out on his face because apparently you can kill them with one shot to the face. And he was one of the bigger, more heavily armored ones. So I shot him in the face, and it really hurt him. Like, his armor, a lot of his armor came off and everything. And I think it weakened him quite a bit. I hit him again in the face, but he was like the behemoth version or whatever. It's more efficient for you to reload your own and that person to use their own backpack. Yeah, it doesn't make much sense to be like, yeah, reload me. It's like, okay, so you don't have anything on your back and you're reloading me like a teeny bit faster. I don't know. Now, I could see wearing each other's backpacks and helping to reload each other as you take turns. But even then, by the time you crunch those numbers, you're probably better off just reloading your own. I'm going to try running an EAT and an autocannon. How would that work? How would that work? Because, well, the EAT, you only shoot one time. So what, you would shoot it once and then switch to your autocannon? They might add melee weapons. I don't know about that. All right, guys, have about 4 minutes. We need 10 members in 4 minutes to keep the streak alive. And then we're going to head to Writer's Room. And we need 21 more likes on the video to hit 300 likes. Thank you guys so much for a huge turnout today. 280 likes already on the video. I still prefer the grenade launcher, but I like it for crowd control. But the EAT has earned a spot for me. The EAT has a super fast cooldown, and your teammate can grab it too. Support reloading is a trophy hunting thing. Oh, do you get a trophy for doing it? I suppose I could let him do it, and I could do it too. Thing is, your homie was giving you. No, I'm not saying that, Sneaky Wolf. He tried to take my backpack, and I said no, and I shot him for it because I wanted my backpack. Wolf Saint says Iki Island is a real place. I was re-listening to the broadcast today. I was not intending to say that Ikishima is not real. I was saying the events that happened on Ikishima are not real. I was like mid-rant. And it did sound like I said like Ikishima is completely made up. What I was saying is like what you do on the island of Ikishima is completely made up. I was pushing back on the notion that like they needed to stay historically accurate with the next Ghost of Tsushima. Stone Spire says, let's cut what we need down to 9, and he gives 1, and we go to 16 members on the day. We need 9 more, and you guys only have like 2 minutes to do it. You guys gonna do the buzzer beater again today? If not, we're losing the streak. The new tournament admissions are difficult. I only had 3 people. It was me and my wife and Rogue, and so we loaded up difficulty 3, and it was super manageable. Super manageable. And then Hex came and joined us, but we were mid-operation. So we just stayed on 3, and then I shut down for the night. That was all we really did. There was a sword in the first game. Ikishima can't hurt you. I'm not sure what you're saying. They definitely need more secondary guns. Yeah, I agree. The lack of secondary guns, it's like what? You have a pistol, you have an Uzi, and then you have like a Magnum. Like, there's a secondary gun coming on Thursday, which we're going to be covering that tomorrow. And Stone Spire gives 5. He's like, come on, boys. And he takes us to 21, and J-Dog takes us to 22. It's going to be right here at the buzzer. 22 out of 25 members. I'm going to schedule Writer's Room right now. It's 11:59, and you guys need 3 more members, and I'll give 5, and we'll get the heck out of here. If you're one of the lucky people who gets gifted a membership, be sure to consider upgrading to the standard membership if you want to come to the Writer's Room. If you can't afford doing that right now, that's totally fine. Just make sure that you get into the Discord. The Discord is available to all member tiers. That's a great place to go and kind of sample the content and the community. You can play Helldivers with people. And if we do hit the 2,500, you'll be able to come to the community game night this Friday night. And Krayos comes in. He's been supporting the channel so much and takes us to 27. That surpasses the goal. Thank you, Krayos. And then I'll do the 5 that I owe, and we will get out of here. There's the 5 that I owe you. We do not have a premiere today or a second stream. The news cycle's slowing down a teeny bit. That tends to happen. Right before a bunch of games come out. Everybody's kind of not wanting to talk because they're going to get immediately cannibalized by the game launches. So the gaming news cycle has slowed down a teeny bit. So we don't have like an upload or a second stream today. But tomorrow we will probably open the day with a Helldiver stream, and then we will probably play so that we can check out the new War Bond, and we can check out the new weapons and take them for a spin. So that should be really, really fun. We've been continuing to enjoy the support and the enthusiasm surrounding Helldivers 2 and Helldivers gameplay. That's been really, really fun. And hang on, I have to. It's got Writer's Room set to auto start, which means I can't start the stream. I have to toggle auto start off, and it's taking a second. There it goes. Let me refresh, and then I will give you guys a link. I will give you a link of where we are headed. Did they remove the item counter from Helldivers 2? No idea. Wait, what? Item counter? What are you talking about? What is an item counter in Helldivers 2? All right. There's a link in the Discord. There's a link in the chat. We can continue this discussion over in the Writer's Room. Thanks so much for being a Reforge member or higher. And if you are watching the tail end of the Spider-Man stream, you can always upgrade to to the $6 tier. The $5 tier is intended for gifted members. They get into some of the extra content. They also get into the Discord as a way to sample the content. And if they like it, they can commit, they can upgrade. It's only $6 instead of $5, and it gets them into all of the members-only content. This is the writer's room where we kind of plan tomorrow's shows and content. And today, if you enjoyed that Spider-Man stream, do me a favor, loop back and make sure you press like and left a comment. Hang on, I got to set up redirect. I forgot to set up redirect. So that way when we end this stream, it sends you guys over. There we go. Let me pop out the chat.